So it's a beautiful morning out here in Frisco, Texas, and thought I'd come out and take some pictures of the old grain silo, some railroad stuff. Well, we'll see how it goes. Shot some pictures, and I don't know. We'll take a look at the edit and see what's what. So I've had a chance to do my edits and look through the photographs that I took the other day, and had some good results. They're not all winners, and in fact, that's one of the things I want to show you is some of the shots that I'm not going to use for anything because they just aren't great. And maybe talk a little bit about why they're not great and what I was trying to get or hoping to get that I didn't get. And then, of course, I'm going to show you the shots that I do think are good and kind of show you the before and after editing on those shots as well. As it's like everybody wants to show their best stuff, and that's great. But sometimes it's more helpful to see the not so great stuff. Maybe that will inspire you in some way. I like to shoot. You just shoot a lot of pictures, and that's kind of one of my secrets. Is the more pictures I take, the better I get, and the more likely I am going to get something that's really, really good. So there you go. Here, let's go take a look. So this first shot is not really a pic. We got the BNSF locomotive kind of centered in the frame, which isn't bad necessarily. And we've got the grass in the foreground with the trees to one side, which I really like. And then kind of just off to the center of the frame, we've got a vintage locomotive and a caboose, which is good. But then we have this big white trailer, and don't really like that. And even though I Photoshop it out, there's nothing of interest over there, which is basically why I don't really like this shot or didn't pick it. All right. So next we have the silos in the background, just off center, with the trees on the left and the Frisco Railroad sign kind of in the middle foreground. And then the crossing guard thing on the right-hand side. And compositionally, it's not that bad. I do have some shots without the cars going through it, but just didn't really think there was anything dynamic enough about it. The foreground's pretty dang boring. It's like all the action is happening in the background. And while it's kind of a descriptive shot and not bad compositionally, it's just kind of blah, not too exciting. Now this one, I kind of like this shot. It's in between the tracks. Again, I've got that white trailer on the right side, which is just really, really annoying and not pretty. I do like seeing the train kind of go off into the distance and the more frontal view of the locomotive with the green stuff on the side. But again, it's kind of like the foreground isn't great, and the right side is either distracting or boring. So again, that's why I didn't like this one either. All right, so then we have another low level shot. I'm low really on the track, kind of similar to the other shot with the silos on the left hand side and the crossing guard on the right hand side. Again, not bad. It's just, I don't know, it's just not that interesting. I mean, we've got a kind of a heavy shadow on the right hand side and with the rail, and again, just not very exciting. And I keep trying to get this crossing guard, railroad crossing signal in there. I like them. I think they're interesting. I just, I can't seem to make them work. They're so tall and so skinny when they're not in the down position that it's hard to get a good angle. I mean, I've tried to shoot up at them and things, and I guess I'll keep trying, but I keep wanting to get that in the shot, and it still just kind of doesn't work. And again, the foreground is boring. We got the street, and we've got we don't hit anything interesting about halfway into the frame, and don't really mind the composition. I think it's actually pretty good, and I don't know, maybe I'll figure something out with this later. But right now, again, it's just not really very exciting to me. Then we have the locomotive from kind of a three-quarter view, and I like this shot. Maybe if I cropped it more, it would be okay. because we don't have a lot going on the right hand side. In fact, the power poles and the trees and stuff, it's just kind of suburban looking. And then the train, it looks nice, but we've got a big shadow right in the middle of it under the BNSF logo. But I do like the foreground. I like all the vegetation in the foreground. The colors on it pop pretty well on the locomotive, but again, just not really exciting. All right, so now we're going to go back and look at the winners, the ones we picked. So this is the JPEG of one of them. This is not retouched. This is straight out of the camera. And I really like this composition. We've got the rails going from left to right in the foreground. It reads really well. We've got the silos on the right, trees on the left with the Frisco sign pretty much centered. So I like this shot. It's not the best shot like this I've ever done. But considering the surroundings down there and how wide open everything is, I think it turned out pretty good. And I like it. Now here's what it looks like after I did my Photoshop magic and a little bit of HDR on it and did some color enhancement, things like that. And I really like it. I think it reads well and the composition is nice. And it kind of does a good job of describing the scene, I think. Gives you a good sense of the railroad location down there. Here's the other one. This is a JPEG. This is, again, unretouched. Again, I got the low angle. I'm like pretty much on the tracks with the splitter rail, like right in the foreground. It's out of focus. Some people might prefer that to be in focus. I kind of like it out of focus. I feel like it draws you into the frame more. But I really like this shot. The angle, I think, is very dynamic. And we've got the switcher sign on the left-hand side, which gives us a pop of color over there in the midst of the green trees. We've got the BNSF locomotive kind of looking at us intimidatingly. And then we can see the long trail of cars behind it, which I think gives it kind of a dynamic effect. And then on the right-hand side, we've got the vintage locomotive with the vintage caboose kind of nestled back there in the background to give us a little bit of interest. And so even though this is kind of a centered composition, I think it really works. And so I like this one. And now you're going to get to see the finished product. This is, of course, photoshopped and everything. I'm not really big on taking stuff out, like erasing things, unless it's really necessary. You notice I let the power lines, things like that. Most often I'll take birds. If there's a bird in the sky, I might erase them because they tend to just look like a blob or a mistake. So I tend to erase birds a lot, but try not to erase much else because part of what I do is like documenting these things. But I like the way this turned out. I feel it's got a certain dynamic to it and colors look nice. And last but not least, we have the spike, the bent spike. And I've actually gotten a lot of interesting comments about this. And again, I just kind of stumbled across it. And stuff like this fascinates me. I love stuff like this because it's like, really, you couldn't finish pounding that thing in? I don't know what it is about it, but I like things that are kind of out of place or mistaken, and the way it's bent, but then the shadow is like straight up. I think maybe it's some kind of metaphor with a deep meaning. I don't know. But anyway, here's what it looks like enhanced with the colors stand out and everything. And I don't know. You might argue that I kind of overdid it, but I just love that bright orange rust color. I think it makes it a really dynamic and more interesting shot and adds to what's already a pretty interesting scene. So thanks for sticking with me and watching through this. I hope you got something out of it. If you didn't learn something, at least you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment or a like and let me know what you think. If you got some ideas of what I could do better, I would love to hear that. Or if you want to know more about cameras and workflow or what have you, let me know that as well. A lot of people do technical stuff and they're great at it. So I'm just trying to stick to the aesthetic part and kind of show you my process and how things go. So anyway, thanks for joining me. Peace out. Be good.